Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third day of the Singapore Fashion Week Fashion Talk series, jointly organized with Mercury Marketing and Communications. LaSalle College of the Arts is proud to be an official partner for Singapore Fashion Week. My name is Nadia Wang, and I'm a fashion lecturer in the Faculty of Design here at LaSalle. I will be your MC for today. This morning's in-conversation session with Thai-American fashion designer Thakoon Panichgul is led by Stephen Kolb, CEO of the Council of Fashion Designers of America. The CFDA is a not-for-profit trade association founded in 1962 that leads industry-wide initiatives and counts more than 400 of America's foremost fashion designers as its members. As a CEO, Stephen manages the CFDA's membership, trade association activities, and philanthropic endeavors. He is particularly focused on cultivating the next wave of emerging American fashion talent through programs such as the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. Thakoon Panichgul presented his first collection in 2004 and quickly became one of the industry's most celebrated new talents. In 2006, Thakoon was a recipient of the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund and has steadily built a cult following for his beautifully crafted feminine designs. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Stephen Kolb and Thakoon Panichgul.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, today I was here 2 days ago talking with Diane von Furstenberg, who's been in business 40 years, and today I have the pleasure to talk to Thakoon, who's been in business about 10 years.
10 years. We just celebrated 10 years in November.
And actually, I started at the CFDA about 10 years ago, so we pretty much started around the same time. And it's been really interesting to see you as a designer and your business grow over those 10 years. And I think it was 2006 that you were in the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund.
Yep, I think that there was a rule where you had to be in business for more than 2 years or 2 years or more.
2 years.
And I was asked in 2005 to do it, even though I had only been for a year. And I felt I was too young, obviously. And so 2006 was when I felt I was ready for the competition.
So I think you might know the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund is a program that CFDA has with Vogue magazine that was started by Anna Wintour. And it is identifying 10 designers with 3 ultimately winning cash prize and a business mentor. And you were actually one of the winners in 2006.
I was a runner-up. It was really exciting. I won a car, along with mentorship from Mark Lee, who was at the time the CEO of Gucci. Which was a really great opportunity to be able to talk to somebody in the industry who's been around, who has experience growing such a big brand. Because for me, that was really, the first couple of years running it on my own, I just needed as much help as I could get.
And Mark was headquartered in Europe at the time, and you were in New York. Is he still a mentor to you? Do you still talk to him?
He is, yeah. So he was, at the time, traveling quite a bit. He was in Europe, but we would email back and forth. And he would give me merchandising plan and strategies, like lengthy emails of merchandising. And every time that he came to New York, we would meet and we would go over all of the pieces from the collection. And he would say, okay, this dress will be your dress for the next couple of years. That this is how the customer is buying clothes. Now she wants to come back for the same dress. Just give it to her in different fabrication, different print. And so those were the kinds of advice that he would give me, and it was really invaluable. And now we continue to talk. He is the CEO of Barney's, and we have one of the best businesses with Barney's.
I remember that year I was one of the judges, and it was my first year, and it was a little intimidating for me to be a judge alongside Diane and Anna Wintour, who, as I mentioned, started the Fashion Fund. What was it like that? Presenting yourself and your creativity and your collection to these people that you probably admired and didn't really know at that point. What was that like, that experience?
I think that was probably one of the most nerve-wracking experiences ever. You're right. I was such a fashion baby. I grew up really loving fashion ever since the age of 8, 9 years of age. So I knew all of these people. When I first got started in fashion, I was a writer at Harper's Bazaar. So I had been around these people and really sort of like, like really respecting what they do. So to actually present a collection to them, I think there's 10 on
10
the
judges, right?
yeah. And you have only 10 minutes to present.
15 minutes
15
with
minutes
the
now.
clock that goes.
Yeah, you see the big clock, and you
Yeah.
just you feel it, and the doors open, and they're just sitting there lining up in front of you, and you see this big clock, and basically the models are standing there, and nobody says anything, and you're just supposed to be speaking the entire time, and it's really the most terrifying moment for any fashion designer. But what happens is if you are really focused, I think your nerves kind of shake away for the first minute, and then all of a sudden things happen really quickly, and then you want to talk more and you want to tell them about your business, which that's what happened to me, and I think that I had to be stopped. So I think that was a good sign.
I think that program represents something very uniquely American, this idea that the industry, those that are established and have experience, can help those that are just starting. And Fashion Fund's an example of that, but that's something that's true, I think, and probably has been true throughout your career as a designer.
I mean, it's one of those things where you not only have access to Anna Wintour, who can really champion you and really take you to the next level, but the
And
other
get
judges.
presidents elected in the United States.
Yeah, exactly. And but the 9 other judges too. You basically have access to them, and you can really give them a call at any point and say, listen, I have a question regarding, we want to launch bags. Reed Krakoff at the time was working at Coach. I called him up and said, we want to launch bags. How do we do this? What's the next step? So, doors really open up with the Fashion Fund, and I think it's an important avenue for young designers now in America, because it's something that they look forward to, I think. And I think that there needs to be more of that globally to help other designers.
You said you were a fashion baby. You
Mhm.
always liked fashion. And you're from Thailand originally, right?
Yep.
What age were you when you moved from Thailand to the States?
I moved when I was 11. We moved to Omaha, Nebraska from Bangkok, and it was because my parents divorced and my mother remarried, and we were in the military, so we moved to Omaha. And at that time, basically, I mean, you guys know Bangkok because it's so close to here, and it's such a big city. So I went from that to a tiny little town in Omaha, Nebraska that had nothing but cornfields and cows, and there was no fashion at all. There literally.
Where did you get your fashion fix from?
So this was the thing. Basically, I remember at the age of maybe like 6 or 7, I have an older brother who's 13 months older than me, so we're practically twins, and we would dress alike all the time. I would, like, if I pick a green outfit, he'd pick a red outfit, and I remember always coordinating with him. So that was like the first sense of like, oh wow, like I could actually style myself. And so when I moved to America, nobody did that, and nobody was interested in fashion, especially in the small town that I was in. And so I was frustrated, and I needed some sort of an outlet. So my mom took us to a bookstore, and I started looking at books, and then all of a sudden I found the newsstand, the magazine stand, and then I started to look at the magazines, and then I found Vogue, Italian Vogue, British Vogue, GQ, like all of the fashion magazines. And at the time, there were so many beautiful fashion stories by Bruce Weber, Patrick de Marchelier, Stephen Meisel, and it was an outlet for me to kind of like to open up the magazines, kind of look at these images, and sort of pretend that I was, in this fantastic world. So that was the first sort of experience for me with fashion.
I'm surprised they sold Italian Vogue in Omaha,
They did.
Nebraska.
But nobody bought it except for me.
Except
of
you.
course. Yeah. But I would
that's
save
why-
up money. I would save up all of my money, all of my allowance money, and just buy, because they were so expensive. I think it was like at the time $30 for Italian Vogue.
Do you still like magazines? You still look at them like
that?
that?
Yeah, I went through a period where, I still collect them, but I went through a period where I didn't even want to look at magazines. I think this was about maybe 4 years ago, just because I think magazines became so common, and all of the images that I saw were basically referencing older images, from even my younger days, of like Bruce Weber. They were all references that I had seen before, so there wasn't anything new. But now I'm kind of getting back into magazines because I think that with the internet, I think it's great to be able to access all of those images, but I think I'm such an image person that when I look at a good magazine, like a self-service or like a really special magazine that maybe comes out once or twice a year, those images are important because, they really think about what they want to put in the magazine.
Yeah, I think the digital content forced print to be more unique and special,
Yep.
so that there's something that you want to buy
Yeah.
and hold on to. So as a fashion baby, though, and somebody that was buying Italian Vogue in Omaha, you ended up going to business school
Yes.
instead of fashion school.
Yes.
What was that decision as opposed to going into design school?
I mean, that wasn't my decision.
That was your mother's decision?
I mean, it's every Asian parent's decision for their kid, I
Okay.
think, which
Does
is
anybody
a good
agree
thing.
with
It's
that
a good
here?
thing. You guys should
Yeah.
really just accept it because I think obviously, that's only 4 years of your life. Like, you have a ton more time to be whoever you want to be. But at the time, I actually, I was really good in business. I joined this marketing club in high school, and I excelled, and I won an award, and that we competed in. So I got a scholarship to go to business school at Boston University, but I did not want to go. And what I did was I was doing a lot of photography at the time. I was an art student, but then I got into photography. So I secretly applied to a photography school in Boston as well, and was thinking for a second that I would pretend to be going to BU, but actually go to photography school.
But you went to BU.
I went to BU, yeah.
And you graduated with a business degree.
Yep, with the business.
So, but in retrospect, being kind of forced to do that, that was probably helpful to you when you became a designer, right? Or
yes,
no?
yes. I think yes and no. Yes, because I was able to break into the industry with a business degree. A business degree in fashion is always valuable. The first job I got was J. Crew.
What was that job?
It was a production job. It was a production assistant, and basically they saw the resume and they were like, "Oh, he graduated with a good grade from business school. Let's do this." So from there, then I got promoted to merchandising because then they saw that I had an eye for clothes. So I did that for about a year, and then moved to Harper's Bazaar from there because I wanted to do higher end fashion.
I mean, but that was probably also helpful because you had the merchandising experience, the business degree, and then you had the editorial perspective, so that when you were ready to launch Thakoon, you had all of that kind of knowledge to take with you in creating your brand.
I think what it was because I didn't train in fashion, I was always a little insecure about actually just launching my career as a designer. And so what I did was I just kind of went around it by production, by merchandising, by writing about it, and then it was almost like it was enough already. Like, if I want to do this, I should just do this. And then I think that the point for me was when I was writing bigger stories for Harper's Bazaar. I was interviewing designers, and I just ended up wanting to hang out with them more and be at the studio. I was always more intrigued by what they were doing, and I didn't ever want to come back to the office.
Is there any designer particular that you remember that you interviewed that kind of influenced?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys even know the Bruce Girls. I don't know if you remember the collection Bruce.
Yeah.
They came out, I think, about 1998 or something, 1999, I would say. And really shot up really quickly. Anna had them shot by Stephen Meisel for Vogue. It was around the same time that Miguel Adrover was coming out as well. There was this avant-garde fashion moment happening in New York, and I did an interview with them. I really loved what they were doing, and I said, "Can I, I'm taking classes at Parsons. Can I maybe come and intern with you on the weekends to help you out?" And they said, "Sure." So we established friendship, and I went on Saturdays and helped them sew up muslins. and that's how I got interested in actually doing my own collection.
So you quit Harper's Bazaar. You had to call your mother and tell her you were going to be a designer, right?
Well, yeah, no, that
How was that?
it wasn't that official. So basically, I took classes at Parsons for 2 years, while I was still working at Harper's Bazaar, and then at one point I said, okay, let's just maybe start to make some samples and see what would happen. While I was working at Harper's, still I had contacted manufacturers, Italian mills. I got some fabric and I started making samples. And then I took the samples and I showed them to Harper's competitor, Vogue. I went to Sally Singer because I had known her from just going out to shows, and I said, I'm thinking I want to do something. Can I show you some pieces? And she was like, absolutely. So we met at the Soho House on a Saturday, and she really loved it. And she said, this is great. Like you should continue it. Let's, we'll do something on you. And so at that point, then I said, okay, I have to quit my job, clearly. So that was when it happened. I think it was like the May of 2004.
So those samples became your first collection?
Samples became my first collection, not the first presentation collection, but the first collection that I showed. So I showed to Sally Singer. I showed to Ikram Goldman, who has this great store in Chicago, who basically made Mrs. Obama and her
Amazing
style.
Store in Chicago, and she's an amazing woman with great taste.
Yep, and I showed it to Net-a-Porter. Net-a-Porter had just launched, and so they were, we were one of their first clients.
So Net-a-Porter and Ikram
Net-a-Porter,
bought you right away?
Ikram, Barney's couldn't buy it. They liked it. They couldn't buy it because I only had 3 styles to show, and that doesn't really hang well at the store. And Kierna Zabet bought it as well.
And so were you able to produce it and get it delivered on time?
So yeah, I mean, I basically worked from home then. I was living in a tiny little studio apartment. I worked from home. I did everything. I shipped it myself. I actually went to the Container Store, which is the a store that you can buy boxes.
Sells containers.
Yeah, exactly. to ship out all of the goods myself. But I kind of timed it because I knew I secured a feature story in the August issue of Vogue. Wow. I had scheduled a presentation in September for Fashion Week. And so then I had shipped the first collection by the beginning of August. So I knew that if something was going to happen, it was going to be that time, and if it didn't happen, then I would do something else.
And then the second collection, did Barney's buy that? Then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So so in September, I had a presentation at Drive-In Studios. I didn't know what to expect. I basically enlisted all of my friends to help me to shoot it, to style it, to help me sew. I didn't pay them a dime, but they were all really interested in the project, so they really pitched in. Everybody came, and literally
Anna
the
came?
next
Did Anna come the first?
Anna didn't come, but her entire staff came.
Staff did, yeah.
I think because of the Vogue article.
Sally's connection,
Yep.
yeah.
Because of the Vogue article, everyone came, and then everyone in the industry came. Because then by that time, Julie Gohart, who was the fashion director for Barney's, she was asked by the media, who's the next person you're looking forward to? And she said Thakoon, and she called me and said, okay, I said Thakoon, so it better be good.
Yeah. Well, Julie was also, when Proenza Schooler were in their last year at Parsons, and they had their senior collection. She was the one who bought that collection to Barney. So she was very influential in starting a lot of designers of your generation, and Barney's was very influential in obviously starting a lot of careers.
Absolutely. I mean, you can count on one hand, at that time, the influential people in New York that were able to help you. And I think that's the thing about New York is at that time there was so much interest in new designers, and I mean now we're a bit more established, clearly, but at the time it was, Proenza started 2 years before me, and it was me, Rag & Bone was starting, Rodarte was starting, Philip Lim started a year before me, all of these names now, Derek Lamb, all of these names
Tom
now,
Brown.
Yep, Tom Brown.
Yeah. And
they were all fashion funders. We
Yeah.
all had. I remember going to California to do a presentation, and we were in the school bus. We were just sitting back there as if it was high school, but we were
going up to
Carmel.
Carmel
Yep.
for Pebble Beach for
Exactly.
the fashion show.
Exactly.
I remember that. I think what's interesting is that there is that new generation of American talent that came out of Fashion Fund and around that same time. And I told this the other day when I was with Diane about Joseph Altazar, who came after you.
Yeah.
But Joseph, just based on opportunity, he could have started Altazar in any city.
Right.
And his mother told me right after Karen bought or invested in his company, she called me to thank CFDA and thank New York for all it has done for Joseph.
Yep.
And she said we could have started anywhere, but we started in New York because we knew that that was a city of opportunity
Yep.
where young designers could really flourish and get a chance, unlike in other cities.
I mean, it's a window now, right? Like, I feel like now, since that time, everyone wants to be in New York. And I think that, I mean, you know more than anyone how packed the calendar is now for Fashion Week.
Yes.
There are so many new designers coming up, and I think that it's becoming such a loud place it's too loud.
It's
almost.
too loud. It's oversaturated,
Yeah.
so it's hard to stand out. But I think the funny thing that I always find about you and designers of your generation, because you all came from that moment, you're going to be 60 and you're still going to be an emerging designer.
I know.
Right? It's like, when do they stop calling you an emerging designer?
I think it was, who was it that said to me, it was like, well, you're not really emerging anymore. It was Guy Trebay from the New York Times, who's this writer who's a fantastic writer, but he's the driest person ever. And he said to me, but you're not emerging anymore. You're not young anymore. I'm like, thank you. Thanks a lot.
I always like to say new generation, but so now you're working, you're designing, and you have an incredible business partner in Maria, and I think it's a really good example of the left brain, right brain relationship. So when did she come into the equation? And talk to me about how that works with you two and in business.
She came in in the beginning, basically. I had done my collection. I had sold it to the 3 stores. And then when I was preparing the first presentation, I needed somebody to come in and to help me cost the goods and get in the stores to buy. And she, at the time, was working at Alexander McQueen as the VP of wholesale. And prior to that, she had launched Narciso Rodriguez in the U.S. So she left the Gucci group because she felt like it wasn't for her. She wanted to help emerging designers because at that time there were so many that needed help. And so she found an opportunity. I met her through Julie Gilhard from Barney's, who recommended her, and as well as Ikram. So we met right away, and she had a really good understanding of fashion. She's a business person that has a fashion sensibility. She gets luxury. She's not business purely just to be selling clothes. Like she wants to sell clothes, but she also loves fashion. She's the first person to go to Comme des Garçons to buy something, and she's like, I gotta have that sack because it's just so cool. Even though it looks really bad on her. It's like, so, but she had a good business acumen as well. And so for us, we've been working together ever since, and we still work together, and she's a great friend, and she's like family to me, but she has designers need a good partner who innately understands them and lets them do exactly what you want to do, and that's what she does.
She lets you stay in the creative lane, and then she stays in the business lane.
Exactly.
But has she ever told you, like, no, you can't do that?
No.
No.
She would say, you can do that, but I need this too. So it's really just letting the creative really lead, and then supporting it in every which way possible. So if we're doing something crazy like a big sculpted sleeve, she'll say, okay, well, can you just give me something like more toned down, that's more commercial, like a T-shirt with like a little bit of a sleeve or something.
I think what you have with her and having that from the beginning says a lot about the success you've had, because so many designers of that same time, they were just there by themselves, and it took a long time for them to find their Maria, or in some instances they never did.
People don't talk about it because this is a great example of a new generation of designers coming up, and the press loves to champion new ideas and give them a platform, right? And really write great things about them. But they're thrust into this limelight. All of a sudden, they don't know what they're doing. They're basically just creating, but they don't have the foundation at all, and nobody tells them what to do business-wise. So that's the pitfall of that industry, of the industry sometimes. And I think that unless you have somebody that has a business partner, unless you have a business partner, it's hard to succeed. I mean, the girls that I interned with, the Bruce girls, they were so creative, but they had no business acumen at all, and they were not able to produce and cost. And I mean, they were sewing their own samples, which I thought was really silly too.
Yeah, I mean, it's knowing that designing is a business,
Yeah.
and you're in it to sell clothes,
Exactly.
and to deliver clothes and make money, hopefully, and it's not just a creative art project.
Yep.
So designing, take us through how you create a collection from idea, inspiration, to delivery in the store.
It's always it's a funny question, because I think that I think I have ADD, or I'm very short attention span kind of a person, where if there is a formula to the process that I work, then I don't want to do that anymore. It's like when I was in high school, if everyone wanted to wear black, I wanted to wear white. Like, I just don't want to ever sort of fit into a formula or go along with the flow at all. But what I do is, at the beginning of the design phase, what I try to do is I try to kind of just erase everything that I had just done previously. So let's say, in February when we just had the show, I go sort of blank for like a week, where I just try to flush out like all of just empty out my brain basically, and then it becomes like an open sort of sponge, and then I try to just absorb as much as I can for the next month or so. So I go to galleries, I go to bookstores. I love bookstores quite a bit, because I still find a lot of good inspiration from a lot of old vintage books. There's some great ones from London and New York that I continue to buy from on a regular basis. So I absorb that. I love working in New York because the street culture is so good. I've been everywhere. I've been to every city, but there's something about New York street culture where you walk to work and you kind of, you see skateboarders just skating around and they're wearing a t-shirt in a different way that you've never seen before, or there's maybe like glitter on the pavement from the night before, people partying, and it's like there are things that kind of click in your head, and it's almost like my mind becomes like a funnel, where then I'm taking references from books, from art, from galleries, from the street, and then it all kind of comes together. And at a certain point, then I see a commonality in what I'm interested in, and then from there, then starts the fabric selection process.
Do you sketch something out?
I do, but my sketches are so like chicken scratchy, like sort of like they're not really. I don't draw in the traditional sense. I do more flats. I don't do croquis, because I don't see clothes in a full form. I just see garments usually. So and when ideas come, they come in forms of like maybe it's doing something interesting with a sleeve, or a combination of a peplum with this or whatever. So it's more garment based. It's more construction based. So that's how I kind of design. And then from there, we look at fabrication, and I pick fabrication for the techniques that I want to do, and then my team spins that out into different proportions. So let's say we're loving a cropped jacket this season. Let's look at it on the form, if it works really well with like a longer skirt, or with a crop pant, or with a mini skirt, because we're really feeling everything being mini or something.
You have your main collection,
Yep.
Thakoon, and then your second collection is Thakoon Edition.
Correct.
How do you manage both of those?
It's we look at it as one big collection,
So it connects.
because Thakoon Edition started off as a capsule collection, and basically it was basically to serve the needs of the retailers. At that time, I was doing a lot of easy dresses. I was doing a lot of these sort of classic prints that people really love, colorful prints. And so, stores would come in and say, can you give us more of these things that you've been doing? And while I understood that I needed to do that for business, I also didn't want to stay on that certain design because I wanted to kind of continue to find new designs. So basically we said, okay, let's really call like Capsule Collection Thakoon Edition, and we can give them, these classic Thakoon dresses and Thakoon prints, and we can just do them over and over and over again. And so we kept doing that, and that became successful. And the source would come in and say, "Can you give me a pant for this collection? Can you give me a jacket?" Then it kind of spun into its own beast, its own collection. So that's when we said, okay, it's got to be two distinctly different collections. But in the end, though, the idea for both collections are still the same. For the runway, we might do something that's really embellished, like let's say an iris motif that's really embellished and expensive, but then we'll take that iris motif and put it on cotton poplin or cotton voile and make a print out of it. So that becomes Thakoon Edition.
So, I mean, a lot of designers switch from the designer price point to that upper contemporary, right? Thakoon Edition would be...
It's contemporary. It's like designer contemporary.
Designer
so
contemporary.
Average price point, $400.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what do you think the future of like price point and category is with designer? Then you have designer contemporary, fast fashion. Where do you see it all going?
I think it's going to come down. It continues to come down, but I think the designer contemporary price point is the new luxury. I mean, the reality is $400 is still a lot of money for a lot of people.
Totally.
And I think that you can't deny fast fashion. The fact that Zara and H&M, Mango, whoever can actually copy really well, and at times they actually buy the fabrics from the mills that you're buying from, but they're able to buy it at such a good price because they're buying it 100 times more than you. And we've had instances where, like literally 2 weeks ago, my designer spotted 5 different styles from us that was ripped off by Zara. And, and we hadn't even delivered our pieces. So the reality is prices are coming down. I always say that ready-to-wear is the new couture, where couture is now gone, ready-to-wear is going
designer
that
contemporary is the new luxury. Yeah, it's interesting. I would agree with that, and I do think those fast fashion houses are so fast in copying something before you've even shown it, and they know that, and I think, did you ever come to Washington? Did we ever go to?
I
We
did.
went to Washington together, right?
Yep.
I forget who we met while we were. Did we meet John McCain?
We met a ton of politicians that I
don't remember.
Not John McCain. I don't remember.
It was so long ago.
A blur. It was interesting.
Yeah, for a while we were working on...
It was so not fashion.
copyright protection for fashion design, which is not something you can copyright in the States. And a lot of fast fashion companies will, just knock off designers like Thakoon and others. A lot of it happens around red carpet. So do you do a lot of celebrity dressing?
I do. We do it organically, though. I've never believed in really pushing it. I think that it's always been very, it's a sensibility, right? Like Emma Stone, let's say, like we dressed her for the Met last year. She's got this sort of feminine, tomboy, cool, and she's very.
I love her.
She's amazing,
Yeah.
and she. I had heard that she loves the clothes. She wears Thakoon. She wears Thakoon Edition quite a bit, and so we then forged a relationship with her, and then basically one thing led to another, and then she came with me to the Met. I mean, Sienna Miller recently for the Met too. It's there are these girls that I love, and their sense of style is inherently what our DNA is. There's a sense of bohemian quality, there's a tomboy quality, there's a femininity always, and there's just cool girls, and so we don't aggressively seek them out, and I don't want to dress everybody because I think that's not what it's about.
Feels forced.
It feels really forced, and we get a lot of requests, a ton of requests, and we turn them down quite a bit, so.
Do you see impact in your business, like when Emma Stone wears Thakoon?
Yes, when somebody like Emma Stone wears Thakoon, you see a ton of impressions because she resonates globally. When you see it on somebody, let's say like Sienna Miller, she resonates too, but it's in a different way. She's more fashion centric. So a lot of fashion insiders really love Sienna. I don't think that everyone, let's say, loves Sienna like globally. They might not know her as well as Emma Stone, but so it resonates in different ways. I recently dressed Anna Kendrick for the Academy Awards, and for me, it was so surprising because everyone all over the world loves her, and I had no idea how big she is until after we dressed her, and Instagram was blowing up, and we were getting requests like left and right after that. I was like, what just happened?
And Mrs. Obama's wearing your clothes.
Yes.
And what was that like when the first time you saw her in Thakoon?
That was cool. It was really cool. I mean, it's something that I will never forget. I remember, we had made her a couple of dresses and didn't know when she was going to wear them. I think this was the time that they were, going through election process, and I was home. I got home early because I wanted to watch the Democratic National Convention on TV because it was really exciting. I mean,
the first election.
Yeah, the first election.
Yeah.
An African American candidate running for president, and he had a good chance of winning. And I mean, it's history in the making. So I wanted to really watch it on TV live. And I was sitting there talking to, I don't know who I was talking to. I think it was my brother at the time on the phone. And then I had it on, muted, and I looked and I saw this red thing go by the screen. And I was like, that looks familiar to me. And I looked, and she was sitting there with her daughter, on her lap. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It freaked me out so much. And all of a sudden, people started calling in and said, oh my God, I think that's Thakoon. It was a surreal moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, especially in those early days with Mrs. Obama, when she would wear an American designer like yourself, it would just blow up, and then it became her thing, and it was still always exciting, but that would just be huge stories when in the very beginning.
Every single outfit that she wore at that time, people had to write about. Yeah. Every single outfit. But that's also, what was clever about what she was doing then, I think, working in conjunction with Ikram Goldman too, because it was really about the new America. It's really about, an African-American family that can actually, rise and lead the country as well. And that speaks volume. That really resonated with me as an immigrant American coming to the U.S. And, that was part of the storytelling. She was really aware of, who she wore. I think she wore me, she wore, Maria Cornejo, Narciso Rodriguez, a lot of these Americans who are from other parts of the world. I think that's an important story to tell.
I think that's an important story in American fashion, is the immigrant who comes to the States. And you look at the roster of CFDA members who are part of the organization, and so many of them come elsewhere. The other night, the American ambassador here in Singapore hosted a dinner, and he was saying that. He was saying he thinks the two things about America that really, particularly in our industry, that separated are the innovation that fashion is about, but also that immigrant story. Mm-hmm. And so you're from Thailand. You're identified, I guess, as an Asian American designer a lot. What does that actually mean or stand for you?
I don't think about it so much. I think that for a long time, I thought that I was American. I mean, I've lived in America a lot longer than Thailand. And so, and I speak English actually better than Thai, which is kind of bad. But I never think about it that way, not until the press says, Asian American designer, or even now, it's just being introduced that way. It's like, I think of myself as a global citizen. It doesn't really matter. I think that, especially in fashion, it doesn't really matter. This is one of the areas where you can actually be from anywhere, and it's actually really good for you to be not from one place or the other, but bringing exotic influences to what you do. I think that's a really, it gives you a voice in fashion. Yeah.
I think fashion's not so defined anymore by the border of where a designer lives, but it is global. And being that we're in Singapore, in Asia being kind of the buzz market, what do you think the opportunities are for designers living here in Asia, but also for American designers in Asia?
I think that, obviously we all know that Asia is a big market. I think that Singapore is one of the hubs for consumption. You see luxury everywhere here. I think that I think the opportunities, especially for local designers, I think is really to showcase more of the voice of Singapore, and really identify what that is, because I interview a lot of young graduates from Parsons and from all of these fashion schools, and what they do a lot of the times is they're doing Phoebe Philo Celine, or they're doing a Nicola Casquier Balenciaga, or they're so influenced by these big fashion personalities that that's become their story, and that doesn't cut it. I think that to have originality is the most important thing. That's what we're doing in fashion. That's what fashion is supposed to be about. So I think especially for local designers here, really just, what is your advantage? What is your voice? Is your voice to be a minimal Celine, or is your voice to be something that's cooler, or something that not other countries can do? And put that out there locally, because you're getting a lot of expats, you're getting a lot of Europeans, you're getting a lot of people to come to Singapore. Show them what you can do, and that will start to sort of trickle down effect of influence, I think.
I think originality is important in not worrying so much what happened before, or what another designer is doing besides you, and really just staying focused and having a point of view, right?
Yeah. I started it that way. For me, it wasn't like I loved what Helmut Lang was doing, the original Helmut Lang was doing. I loved what Jill Sander was doing. So I actually loved a lot of what minimal designers were doing at the time, but my clothes are certainly not minimal, but it was taking an understanding of what I love and identifying them, and then doing it in my own voice. And I think that that's the most important thing as a fashion designer. If you want to break it and be known, you need to have a definition of who you are, and not a replication of who you are,
Besides that, what other advice do you have for young designers? Which I'm sure people ask you that question a lot.
I think you need to decide if you want to be a designer or if you want to be famous. I think that's the most important thing, because if you want to be famous, then maybe designing is not for you. But for me, if you want to be a designer, you need to have that drive, and you will have that drive naturally if that's what you want to do. So really figure out what it is. I think with this Instagram age, it's like selfie age, I think that everyone wants to be famous now, and it's like, it's so boring. It's like, don't you want to have a talent too?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's become their own brand now, and promoting themselves. When Mrs. Obama recently had a workshop at the White House for hand-picked students to come, and in that, I don't know if you were there in the daytime part, if you were just there for the nighttime.
Yeah.
But she had Diane there, Jenna Lyons from J. Crew, Anna Wintour, Zach Posen, Narciso Rodriguez, Maria Cornejo, really like the best minds and talents of the industry, and all of these young kids. And Anna mentioned to me, I asked her at the party that night, how was the day thing? And she said, after Mrs. Obama spoke, and she said to the kids, now go and meet these people, learn from them, ask them questions. All they wanted to do was get selfies with all of the people in the room.
It's
crazy. It's such a
missed
opportunity.
It's a crazy culture that we're living in. I think it's great. I embraced it. I love Instagram. And I do my fair share of selfies. But at the same time, it's really, I think that this generation now wants content and context and something that's a bit more compelling, to tell the story. I think that it's not enough anymore to just be pretty, it's never enough to be pretty. But I just think that it's the world that we're living in. You have to find a balance between being a celebrity, and then also have a talent that you actually innately want to push out there.
Right. Then you have to have the confidence and the ability to represent yourself and represent your brand, and be the face of your brand to some extent. But when it gets eclipsed by being famous or recognized, then that becomes something different.
Yeah. I always say that I never wanted to talk in public.
You've gotten better at it over the years.
Yeah, but it's for me. The clothes should speak for itself. Like I don't really need even like backstage. I don't want to talk about the clothes. You should just see it. You know, it's almost like if I talk about it too much, I get bored with myself too. And it's like this thing that I have, and it's if you love fashion and if you want to start a collection, if you want to do something for yourself, the clothes should speak for themselves. It shouldn't be you being in the clothes and sort of I think it's about the craft.
And it's also the work because I don't come from fashion, so it's not my background. But what I realize is the amount of hours and time that you put in and the sacrifices that you make. If you're a designer in the States, you don't celebrate any holiday.
No.
You don't get any long weekend. And if you're doing 4 collections a year, I mean, you're basically working every single day.
It sucks. No, it really. All of the holidays are gone.
Yeah.
Basically, you go on vacation when everyone else is not. I mean, that's a good thing too. You go to the beach when no one else is at the beach, but it might be in October when it's freezing.
Yeah. It's demanding, and I think in the age of technology and TV shows and websites and internet, people think it's really easy just because they know how to dress good and style themselves, that all of a sudden that translates into being a designer, and it's not that at all. You really have to work.
I'm fascinated though, because I think that like I want to be open-minded to what's happening in this world. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about blog shop. So basically, these bloggers, I mean, you guys all know of bloggers who are who have a ton of followers on Instagram, and then all of a sudden they're starting to make clothes that they're selling now. But it's like they're making clothes based off of like the Dior dress that they're wearing or the Thakoon dress that they're wearing. It's like where is fashion going? It's fascinating to me.
What do you think about celebrity designers?
I think there's a place for them. I think everyone has a voice. I think this is what fashion is about. Even in the culture of New York designers, there are different personalities. Rodarte certainly does not do the same thing that I do. They are interested more in art and in their fashion. I'm more interested in commerce than fashion. Celebrities have their own game too, and I think that there is an audience for them. So I think by all means, like if if you're a celebrity, if you want to make clothes, that's fine. And if you have an audience, that's great. Like there's enough room for everybody.
Sure.
So in that sense, I mean, if the celebrities do good work, then I really like it. But if a lot of them don't do good work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's creative people don't just limit themselves to one direction or one focus.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you just saw or read that Rodarte, they're actually wrote a screenplay and directing their first film.
Yeah, I just read that.
So I mean that makes sense for them, and I think for celebrities that love fashion, and Mary-Kate and Ashley are a really good example. I mean they're not actresses anymore; they're designers.
Exactly.
And they're authentic about it. I think it's weird sometimes if it's just slapping your name onto something and then you just don't pay attention.
You can
to
tell. I mean, you can really tell when somebody's
like
slapping
that.
their name to sneaker company or something. You can really tell. I mean, Mary-Kate and Ashley do a really great job. I really love what they do. Victoria Beckham, I think, is doing a great job
She's
for her.
great, a good example.
And so
she was
there
showing in Sunday night at Singapore Fashion Week.
There are people that they love fashion, and you can tell, and they they have a voice. And you can tell when people just are trying to make money.
Yeah, for sure. So you when you were in college, you were doing photography. So I guess what if you weren't a fashion designer, what would you be doing, you think?
Oh my God. Okay, I have a couple of things.
All right.
I think that I always, I would love to be a musician.
Musician?
Yeah.
Will you play instruments?
I'm good at instruments. I played when I was younger. I wish I could play better. I would love to learn the piano. I've never played the piano, and I think that I would be good, but I would be a musician probably.
Can you sing?
I can carry a tune. I don't think that I can.
Would you sing for us now? No?
I don't think you want that. I don't think you want that.
All right.
I'll do it after the show on Saturday.
All right. Is everybody coming to Thakoon show on Saturday? Yeah. One of my favorite parts of Fashion Week is going to your show, and I always sit near your mother. She always comes. She still lives in Omaha.
Yep.
She
No, she just moved to Texas.
Oh, she moved to Texas?
Yep. She's going to have big hair now.
All right, good. She always comes to the show, and she must be very proud of
Yes.
how your career has, and embrace it, and probably talks about her son, the fashion
Oh, we didn't talk. I didn't tell you how I told her.
No, or you never told us
No, I
that.
never told her. So basically, I was working at Bazaar. I started the collection, and I didn't tell my mom that I had quit my job, because if I had done that, she would have freaked out. So basically, I was out of a job. I wasn't making any money for 3 months. My aunt had called my office line at Harper's Bazaar, and it said, this person is no longer here. She then called my mom and said, oh, that's weird. Thakoon's not working anymore at Harper's Bazaar. So that's how I told my mom.
That's funny. Well, it's always fun to watch the moms and the dads at shows, because they're always so proud,
Yeah.
kind of watching the collection. So
Do they all go to every show?
the mom,
yeah.
a lot of moms do, yeah, and you can always tell who they are.
Yeah,
And I, for some reason, are always sat near the mom. So
Really?
I don't know why. All right, so maybe the bright lights I can't really see, but hopefully somebody has some questions and they can raise their hand and stand up. All right, over there. You're gonna have to. Why don't you come up? I'm gonna come over here with the microphone. So you, there's a microphone right behind you, and you can ask some questions.
I wanted to ask, when you started your label and you were first starting out, figuring out your manufacturing process and the supply chain, what were the biggest mistakes or biggest lessons you learned when you first started?
I think it was the costing process. I think that it's a really analytical process, and you really have to understand, what the cost of goods sold is, which is basically, your meter yardage, your trims. I remember, I would just factor in only the cost of the fabric. I'd never put in the lining, the buttons, the zippers. Like, I just was like, oh, I forgot, I guess, And so all of a sudden I was selling clothes with no margin. But basically, I wasn't making a dime at that time. So it really, I think it's the costing process is the most important thing. Also, when you're buying fabrics, like the shipping cost and the duties are
Crazy.
They're so crazy. And I mean, the shipping sometimes is the cost of the fabric.
Yeah.
And so, figuring out how much to buy of something and how you're gonna use that fabric. So let's say, you're buying a beautiful silk from Italy. You only need 50 yards of it. I would buy 200 yards, so then I can get the next price break. But then I would use that fabric again in the next collection. So then that informs your design process a little bit. So then, then maybe there's a consistency in what you need to do with that silk.
Who else?
Hi, good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Thakoon. It was interesting that you were mentioning that ready-to-wear is the new couture, because right now we are looking at luxury brands aggressively doing the next it bag, the next perfume, the next belt, and stuff like that. Do you find that clothes, fashion, has taken a backseat when it comes to branding or your brand? And how would you approach that, about the pressure of coming up with the next small leather goods versus fashion?
I mean, I think that for luxury brands, clothing is, for a lot of luxury brands, clothing take a backseat because they're so expensive. I think it's about price point, right? Like, a bag is easier to get into because you don't have to try it on. I mean, it fits everybody. You can buy it, and your return for your dollar is better because, let's say, a $1,200 bag, you can wear it every day. A dress that you buy for $1,200, you're certainly not wearing it every single day. So, and then, you have competition from Zara, from all of these, like Topshop. You can buy those clothes and carry an expensive bag, and that's a good look for you. So I think it's really about the landscape of how customers are shopping. It's not so much about big brands trying to make another category a success. They're just reacting to how consumers are shopping, I think. Does that make sense?
Anyone else?
I think that a lot of luxury brands are actually trying to go down into the lower price point. Like you see the rise of Kenzo, let's say, that's a cheaper price point. You see, a lot of these, if you look at all of categories for, for Gucci or for big brands, you'll see T-shirts that are cheaper too. So they're trying to get into the lower categories as well, the price point, I mean.
All right. Well, thank you, Thakoon. I don't think we have any
No more
questions. That's it. All
There's
right. Well,
another
thank you, everybody, for. You see one?
If you wanted to ask another question. But.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Thakoon, for sharing all your insight. And bye.